Hello, quarantine kids and self-isolators, and welcome back to my boyfriend's channel, where I talk about movies that I've never seen. 2 months later. So today, we have 3 movies that were not complete shit, but I'm still going to shit on. So, the first one we have is The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is actually my ex's favorite movie that I've never fucking seen. And this movie is basically like the Marvel Cinematic Universe before that was a thing, or the Dark Universe, whichever one you want to consider it to be, where it's got like some dude that's like a sharpshooter I've never heard of, and then like a vampire chick from Dracula, the Invisible Man, Jekyll and Hyde. I guess it's Tom Sawyer. It never says Tom Sawyer, but his name's Sawyer. Maybe that's the Missouri in me. Who the fuck else is in this movie? Dorian Gray, didn't have a clue who that was, had to Google it. And Captain Nemo, that was the other one. And they want to try to prevent World War I from happening in this Tarantino-esque World War I starting. Europe, 1899. Somewhere in Germany, a bank is being robbed, or Germans are robbing a bank, I don't know, and then England's mad at them. Basically, World War I guess. And this guy goes up to, like, Sean Connery, who's the sharpshooter quarter man or something, and he's like, you gotta help us, bro. We want us to stop the war. He's like, I can't leave Africa, I'll die. Like, Africa's my place. And so he goes anyways, and he gets there, and like Captain Nemo's there, and like the Invisible Man's there. He's like put paint on his face to show up. And the girl shows up, and they're like, we wanted your husband. And she's like, too bad, he dead. And so they go to recruit the Dorian guy. He says no, and then like a bunch of assassins come out and try to kill everyone. And then he's like, shit, yeah, I'll join, because Tom Sawyer's gonna take his place. And he's like, nah, I'll join too. And this is where you find out that the villain's name is Phantom. He wears a mask. He has a burned face. Never says he's the Phantom of the Opera, but that's kind of the vibes I was getting from it. And he stole Da Vinci's, like, Plans of Venice or something. Don't know why that... But whatever, he wants to, like, bomb Italy. And while they get on the submarine to go to Paris or whatever, because they get Jekyll and Hyde, who takes potions to turn into, like, Hyde, I don't know, and they wear off and he turns back into Jekyll. I don't know how that story normally works, but that's what happens in this movie. And then they go to Italy in their submarine, and then they know Skinner's, like, gone. They're like, oh shit, he betrayed us, which is the Invisible Man. And then, like, there's, like, photo evidence and, like, a potion missing, and they figure out that, like, Dorian's the one that actually was, like, the... What would that be called? The mole? Yeah, he's the mole. And he's like, yeah, I stole a potion, I took a picture of the submarine, I took the vampire chick's blood, and, like, all this crap. And he does what we call a not gamer move, where he tells the vampire chick how to defeat him, which is, like, he can't look at his own painting, or he'll, like, trade places with it or something. Like, he has a magic painting that he put himself in or whatever, where he doesn't age, but his painting does. So, but if he looks at it, then he ages and the painting goes back to looking young. And so, for some reason, he tells her that. So she knows how to defeat him later on, which, like, spoilers, if you haven't seen this movie that's, like, older than... How old is this movie? It's old.
2004, I think.
It's 16 years old. So, and then the Phantom is, like, Mr. M or whatever. He's like the guy that is like the Nick Fury. He got all of them to join this league that he never planned on existing, because he just wanted to, like, get all their shit and then kill them all, I guess. They stop, like, parts of Italy from being bombed. It still gets bombed, but they don't severely ruin Italy. Yeah. And then they find, after this all happens and they get back on their submarine and stuff, there's, like, a record, and the record plays, and it tells them, like, yeah, Dorian's the mole, and it sets off bombs on the submarine, but no one dies that I'm aware of, like, no main people die, and the Hyde, not Jekyll, like jumps in and he like stops it from like drowning people. And then Skinner sends them Morse code saying like, hey, they're in the Arctic or whatever. I'm here. Please help me or whatever. We can kill all these people or whatever. And so they start rescuing people and fighting. I guess his name's James Moriarty is what Mr. M's real name is. I don't know if that's another fictional character. I don't really read because I'm not good at it. So and like spoilers, Mina, I guess is the vampire chick's name. I wrote it down. She does exactly what he says not to do with the painting. She stops Dorian. He gets all old and falls like part to like dust or whatever. And then a bunch of like people take like the invisible potion, take like the roided out potion to be like Jekyll and Hyde, and they all start fighting, and then they all get defeated because it's a movie, and they defeat the guy because Tom Sawyer shoots him because he learns how to shoot from Quartermain, who's like an expert killer person, and then he gets stabbed and he dies, and they bury him in Africa, and then Africa brings him back to life, and that's how the movie ends. I gave it a 7 out of 10 with the word psych because he did not die, I'm pretty sure. Alright, 7 out of 10. Second movie that I've been pronouncing wrong for years. What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Because I thought it was called Guilford Grape, and wrote that down too because I really don't pay attention, but so this movie came out like again before I was like relevant, and it stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Johnny Depp and their brothers. And Leonardo DiCaprio, he's a little special. I don't know what condition he has, but he might be autistic or something, I don't know, but he's special. And his name is Arnie, and Johnny Depp's like the main character. In the entire movie, you're basically watching his life fall apart because he's having to constantly take care of his brother, because he's like, I guess, the new male father figure of the house because his dad, and he committed S-word. And then another brother, I guess, left to join the military or just to like, F it, I'm out of here. Their mom doesn't leave the couch anymore. She's like 300-400 pounds. And the oldest sister takes care of her. The youngest sibling is like 15, and she's just like, I'm a high school kid, I'm cool. Arnie's special, he's 18, and it's basically just Johnny Depp's character's name is Gilbert, and he has to take care of everyone in this house, keep together. He's like the only one that works that I'm aware of. He works at a grocery store, and he like has to take care of Arnie because his mom can't. So Gilbert's having an affair with a married woman. Her husband, I think, owns the insurance company. Don't know if it's Car or Life, but he's sleeping with her, and that comes into play later. Arnie has like an obsession with climbing the water tower, which I thought when he told me this was like the saddest movie ever, that he was gonna like jump off it at some point. He does not jump off the water tower. So basically he's turning 18 in a couple days, and they really want to throw a party for him because he was not expected to live past 10, and he was able to make it to 18, so it was really exciting for everyone. And yeah, this movie's plot basically just kind of surrounds like events that happen to Johnny Depp throughout the movie, where he starts to fall for like a girl his age who's only there for a few days. Her trailer kind of broke down, and she's there with her grandma or her aunt or someone, I don't know, and he's just kind of like liking her. The married woman's pretty jealous, but he's like spending lots of time with her. She gets along really well with Arnie. I think her name's like Becky, I wrote it somewhere, Becky. And there are times when Arnie will have his freakouts. Like there's one part where they're talking about how their dad's dead, and he's like, he's not understanding what he's doing, but he's like, dad's dead, and like obviously it's hurting the mom's feelings. She breaks some floorboards because she's like 400 pounds, and and there is more than one time that Arnie is climbing up the water tower. At one point he actually gets arrested, I guess, because he's close enough to 18 that they arrest him, and the mom, who's like this really overweight person has to go to the courthouse and scream at the police, like, let my son go, he doesn't know what he's doing, like, he needs to come home. And it takes a big toll on her self-esteem, and that's another thing that Gilbert has to, like, kind of deal with when this happens. At one point, when he's with the married lady, he has to actually call, or is on the phone with her husband, and he's like, come down here, I need to talk to you, or whatever. And it's about how he doesn't have life insurance, and they're like, well, you need to stop thinking about yourself and think more about your family. And it's funny to us watching, because, like, that's all he does is think about his family. He doesn't do anything for himself. But in the process, the chick he was just with, like, burns cookies, and her husband needs a ride home, so he has to drive him home. And later that night, he ends up dying of a heart attack. And it looks like the wife may have done something to it. I don't think she did personally, but it doesn't look good on her that when she, like, her husband finds out that this has been happening, he dies, and she has to move to, like, St. Louis. Not the best look, but they end up leaving town, which doesn't help. So finally, it's Arnie's birthday party, and this is supposed to be, like, this really big, exciting day. Arnie ruins the birthday cake his sister made. She's freaking out, so Gilbert has to go to, like, a basically Walmart and buy a new cake, which is embarrassing for him because he works at, like, this mom and pop grocery store. He's like, I'd never shop at this food place, like, that would be awful. And then, like, it kind of, like, the way it hints is that he got fired from his job, or maybe that was my interpretation, because he freaks out even more when Arnie eats that cake. So they have no cake for this party, and he actually, like, freaks out at Arnie. He tells him he has to take a bath, which earlier in the movie he told him to take a bath by himself, and he stayed in the bathtub the entire night. So he has to get in there and take a bath. He doesn't want to. He's scared of water now, and Gilbert beats him. I think he hits him a couple times and then freaks out and leaves. They both leave the house, and Arnie actually goes to Becky, and he's swimming in the water with her, and Gilbert's kind of, like, amazed by this, which, like, I guess everyone's supposed to be, because it's, like, he was just afraid of water, but he was so comforted with this girl, and Gilbert already likes this girl, so it's like, oh, it's working out, it's actually something going good in his favor. So she gets invited to the birthday. They have the party, everything's all fine and dandy, like a hard candy Christmas, and Becky shows up at the party even though she was supposed to have already left. They fixed her truck and everything. She was supposed to leave that morning. She stops by for the party and meets Gilbert's mom. So that, he's like, I don't want, you know, like, you're important to me, I want you to meet it. And it makes the mom feel better because she's like, I'm finally being taken serious. Well, she ends up dying. She climbs up the stairs, gets in bed, and dies, basically. And Arnie finds her and does what I guess a normal person would do when they're kind of in shock, where it's just like, stop sleeping, you know, but she dies, and because of this, Gilbert's like, I don't want everyone to, like, make fun of my mom because she's so overweight, she gained so much weight after our dad committed S-word, that he was like, I'm not gonna let her be a joke, lights a match, and burns the whole house down. And that's basically how the movie ends, is that Arnie and Gilbert, like, meet up with Becky. It's, I guess, a year later, because they talk about how he's turning 19 now, and they drive away together. I was told this is, like, the saddest movie ever, so I expected, like, Arnie to be the one that died. So because of that, I think it took a backseat when the mom died. I was kind of like, oh, that's it? But it's still, like, a sad plot, and it's really sad to see how this man has to, like, go through his life really upset about everything, having to hold everything in and deal with everyone else instead of having to do things and live the way he wants to. So it did kind of, like, hit a little bit a couple days later, because I watched these a few days ago, and I gave this an 8 out of 10, because this is one of the better movies that he has made me watch. So our last one for today has the best score out of all the movies I've reviewed, all 6 of them, and it's Goodfellas. Going into this, I didn't know what this is about, just gangster movie. That's basically it. And it stars, like, Ray Liotta and Robert De Niro. And so, not people I would normally watch. I don't watch gangster movies. I watch horror films. So, this movie opens with a man in someone's trunk, and they open the trunk and they start stabbing him in the face. What an opening. I am ready for this, you know? And then it's like flashback to like the character's name is Henry, is Ray Liotta's, and it flashes back to his childhood where he's like 15 or whatever, and he's like, I've always wanted to be a gangster. They cool and stuff, and it shows like a scene where he has been skipping school to hang out at the like, I want to say it was like a grocery store where the gangsters would be, but I don't remember. I watched this last night, so like, but he hangs out there, and they're like, oh, you have a truancy letter, you haven't been going to school. So they go and they beat up the mailman so that he doesn't deliver any mail to his parents, and he's like, yeah, I want to be a gangster, basically. And it talks about how Polly's like the main guy who owns the grocery store, and that's who he, you know, he doesn't like phone calls and stuff. And then he shows him meet Robert De Niro's character. His name is Jimmy. And he's the one that sticks out because, like, these are all Italians, like, full Italians, and he's just Irish. I don't know if that's even true in real life, but he's Irish, and then, you know, they talk about how he likes to steal stuff, and he loves to give people money. That's, like, his gimmick or whatever. And at one point in the flashback, Kid Henry meets Tommy. Tommy is Joe Pesci's character, and they get busted for selling cigarettes, and they're so proud of Henry because he doesn't rat anyone out, he doesn't say anything. They're like, you're gonna be a great gangsta one day, I guess. And then, like, the flashback's over, and it's kind of like him as, like, an adult, but not current age adult. And it shows this scene of them in a restaurant, and they're all, like, laughing and stuff, and it's that meme I told him existed that he did not know existed, of the, like, face. But they end up getting in, like, a deal or whatever where they are, like, selling stuff out the back of the restaurant. The restaurant is, like, bankrupt or whatever, and they burn it down for, like, insurance money or something like that. And then it shows Henry and Tommy on, like, a double date. Henry does not seem to like this girl, so he, like, stands her up when they go on their next date. It shows a little bit from her perspective of, like, how rude and stuff he is, but he ends up marrying this girl, so I guess it went pretty well. Her name's Karen, but they get married, and she has a hard time adjusting because she's Jewish, and he's, I guess, half Italian, half Irish. He's not full Italian, but she's Jewish and they're Italian, and so she's like, I'm having a hard time adjusting, basically, because they all dress really gross and stuff. I guess she just didn't like the way that they wore, like, too much makeup and stuff like that. It wasn't her, like, choices, so she's like, I don't fit in here, but I have to do my best, basically. And then it shows Tommy, which is Joe Pesci, throwing a fit because, like, this dude that he knows is, like, talking about how he used to shine shoes before he became a gangsta, and so he ends up shooting him. I think he shoots him. I don't know. But, like, he, like, beats him up, basically, and, like, injures him really well. They thought he was dead. They wrapped him up in a trash bag, threw him in the trunk, and you're like, okay, now we're at the beginning of the movie, where he's the one in the trunk who gets stabbed. You know, all the good stuff. And then it goes to, like, them burying the body out in the woods or whatever. And then they show some of Henry cheating on his wife with this other chick. I think her name's Janice. Not important at that point in time, but later becomes more important. And then it talks about how he has, like, 2 houses, and now they're going to build condos. They bought out a land of condos, so they have to dig up the body and rebury it somewhere because now their condo's going to be there. And one of the condos, I guess, goes to that chick. Then it shows Tommy on more of a murderous rampage where he kills a bartender because he tells him to go fuck himself because he shot him in the foot a week earlier. And then Karen, being upset that Henry is cheating on her, pulls a gun in his face, and he talks her out of shooting him just to flip her over and then start beating her. Because, like, who didn't see that coming? This is supposed to be, like, the 80s, I think. So then they send Jimmy and Henry to Florida because there's some guy in Florida, I guess he fled, to go get their money or whatever. And so they hold him over like a lion's den. He spills about how to get the money or whatever, but then tells his sister, who's in the FBI, like, hey, this is what happens. She goes to, like, the, I don't know, super FBI, and, like, rats on all of them, including her brother, so they all get jail time. And while he's in jail, it talks about how it was so easy for them because they had, like, their own little area, they had fresh food and stuff, because they would just boss people around in prison. It was so easy for them. And then he, after a year later, gets out, I guess, for maybe good behavior, I don't know, but he gets out. And him, and Jimmy and Tommy, they're kind of like the gang. They start a side business selling cocaine, because their original business was like robbing airports or something. But now they're selling cocaine. And they rob someplace, I guess. I don't really know the context of it. I can't pronounce the word. I think it was an airport. LaGuardia, I don't know. And they make $6 million that they get to split. And then there's this, like, it's a bigger group of people they have with them, but, like, one of the guys, his entire job was to, like, drive the truck away, and he got high and didn't do that, and so they shoot him, and then they slowly start to kill everyone, so they, like, have less shares, or anyone that connects them to this job, they just murder, like, instantly, and it's usually Tommy that does it. And then they talk about how they're gonna kill this guy Morty, who it was, like, I guess his idea to do it. But they end up doing it anyways. They stab him in the neck or something. So it's, like, even more people. More and more people die. And then they talk about how to be, like, a true member of this specific mafia, I guess. You have to be 100% Italian, which is why I say, I guess, Henry's half Italian, half Irish. Because they says him and Jimmy are Irish. So they can't be full members, but Tommy can. So he's getting made, I guess is the term. Where he's going to be made into, like, an actual big up member. He gets there and gets shot in the face, which I thought was poetic, because he was the one that was killing literally everybody. So he's no longer in it, and now it's just Jimmy and Henry kind of, like, fighting for themselves. Henry is so addicted to his own stash at this point that he's just, like, losing it. It shows this scene where he does a lot of, like, cut frames and time sequences for, like, how his day is going, and it's very rushed and very... That is supposed to, I guess, simulate his mind on drugs. And he, during this rush or whatever, is having to take his mule, who pretends to, I guess, have a baby, and the baby is the drugs, out of the state, I guess Florida or something. And he has to, like, take her to her house to go get her lucky hat. She doesn't fly without it. When he does that, cops storm his house. Karen flushes all of his, like, hidden cocaine or whatever that was worth, like, $60,000. And he gets arrested, but he ends up getting bailed out, like, I guess very quickly. And so he freaks out on Karen when he finds out that she flushed everything, because now they're, like, poor. They have nothing, because all their people are basically dead or arrested. So Polly gives him $3,200 because Polly's like, hey, you kind of, like, turned your back on me and started your own business. Like, I don't really want anything to do with you. Here's money. Don't ever talk to me again. And Karen goes to Jimmy and asks for money. He gives her, I don't actually know how much he gives her, but he's like, yeah, go around the corner and they'll get you a new dress and everything. And it's, like, very hinted at that she was going to be murdered, so she gets in a car and runs away. Drives away. And after that, Jimmy tells Henry, like, hey, I want you to go to Florida. I have a job planned or whatever. And he goes, like, yeah, I know that if I go to Florida, he's going to have me murdered. Like, I know what this is. I've done this enough. So he goes to, I guess, the FBI. And he basically makes, like, an amnesty plea deal where he gets to be in the witness protection program and everyone else gets caught. And that's basically what the entire point of the movies is. He's, like, narrating. He's talking to, like, the witness protection person. And Jimmy gets arrested. Polly gets arrested. Henry's, like, the star witness in the trial. So, like, they know it was him. He has to point them out and everything. Be like, yeah, that's him, that's him. And basically the movie ends with him in, like, a suburb in a different state. He has to go by a different name now. And he's talking about how much he fucking hates it because it's just not the life he wanted. Then there is after credits that talk about, because this is a real story, that says Henry and Karen got divorced after 25 years of marriage. Or being together, I don't know. Like, my God. Polly died in prison, and Jimmy is still in prison, but I'm not sure if that's true because this movie came out in the 90s. It said that he would have parole in 2004, but he may have died before then. I don't really know. But that's that movie. And for someone who does not like non-horror films, because I just don't like movies, this movie kept my attention. That's why I have so many, like, rigid details, because I was trying to write down everything I thought was important, but then I didn't remember what was considered important and what wasn't, because it was all really entertaining. So I gave this movie a 9 out of 10, because I can understand why this movie is on, like, every list I saw for, like, top 10 movies you need to see in your lifetime, because it's just very entertaining to watch, and I don't watch gangster films. Like, I've never seen Godfather. Spoiler, that'll be a different video. But this one is up there. It's good. It's got funny parts. I liked the acting. This is definitely the best out of the, like, 6 or 7 movies that I've watched now. But yeah. Those are my 3 movies for this month, and who knows, maybe with all this quarantine, we'll get out some new videos. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the button and yada 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 yada. And this one will talk to you later.